Greetings and welcome to another impressions video here at Words About Games, and today we're going to be looking at Close to the Sun. Close to the Sun is an alternative history horror game that casts players in the role of Roz Archer, a journalist who is summoned aboard the massive ship Helios by a letter from her scientist sister. Upon arriving aboard, she quickly realizes that things are very, very wrong aboard the ship, a utopia of research built by Nikola Tesla to allow scientists to perform experiments without government oversight. Rose must survive whatever has happened to the Helios, reunite with her sister, and get off the ship in one piece. Close to the Sun is very much a game of two sides. Starting the game and taking your first tentative steps on the Helios as you search for your sister while trying to understand just what's happened sees Close to the Sun setting up a gripping, immersive atmosphere. Pretty much right from the jump, it's obvious something has gone horribly wrong here, hammered home by you almost immediately finding the word quarantine emblazoned in huge letters on the entrance door and a trail of blood leading around the corner, which turns out to be red paint, but that's really neither here nor there. And that's how it is in the first few chapters. Close to the Sun takes all the time it needs to set up an oppressive tone, and it's quite remarkable that, despite nothing directly harmful happening to me, I was still tense and nervous as I explored every area of those opening moments. Jump scares happen, though well spaced out, and they're pretty damn effective, both in terms of their content and delivery. You'll be constantly expecting something to jump out of the dark and try to stab you, but it never does, and it sets your teeth on edge. The problem comes when something actually does jump out of the dark and try to stab you. It's handled in such a poor manner that it obliterates all of the tension and atmosphere that Close to the Sun had managed to build up. After a few chapters of careful exploration, you're put face to face with a deranged psychopath, and after sneaking past him, he spots you and you need to run. There's no tension in the moment, and what should have been a tremendously terrifying sprint from a deranged lunatic to punctuate an hour of nervous anxiety just feels like a bit of a bother. For all the great work Close to the Sun does, setting itself up as a pants-shredding horror experience, the chase sequences that begin to punctuate every level do everything they can to undo it all. You simply run while deranged music plays, pushing A or X to avoid an obstacle every now and again, and choosing to turn left or right from time to time. Fail a button push or choose the wrong direction, and you're treated to an incredibly graphic death screen and start again from scratch. There was no fear involved, save for the fear of repetition. You can turn around to look at your would-be murderer, but that actually seemed to slow me down, as doing so seemingly got me killed when I tried it. After that first chase sequence, upon moving on to the next chapter, the game attempted to ratchet my anxiety levels back up with another creep through a horror show. But knowing that all that awaited me was an irritating chase, it really wasn't all that successful the second time around. The spell had been broken, and the tricks that Close to the Sun had deployed so effortlessly in its opening chapters just didn't really have that much of an effect on me. And it's such a shame that this happens, because the first few chapters of the game had been gripped, thanks to the game's amazing use of psychological manipulation, gruesome backstories, and terrifying imagery. That being said, it's still worth pressing forward for the story, which follows some alternative history pseudo-scientific threads to spin a decent mystery. Early on, you're presented with a ton of background information that quickly helps you up to speed with the state of the world and what's going on. Similarly, there's a ton of information about all of the poor people who lived aboard the Helios lying around for you to paint a picture of who these people were, which helps ground you in the bonkers narrative and make the Helios feel like a real place where people actually lived. The main driver of the story, however, is the relationship between Rose and her sister, who you'll talk to on a radio, and a third character whose interactions are delightful. Their dialogue is expertly written. Even when they're just trading plot points back and forth, it all comes off as incredibly natural, and you can really feel the sisterly connection between them. The narrative is tied up in the relationships between the small cast of characters, which helps invest you in their story, and keeps you invested when the horrific atmosphere loses its grip. There are also puzzles to solve as you move through the game, but none are particularly challenging, at least not in the first half. You'll mostly spend your time finding clues in the environment or notes and applying them to whatever mechanism is blocking your path. It works to keep Close to the Sun moving at a brisk pace, as obtuse puzzles would have killed the momentum of the game in short order. I wanted to love Close to the Sun more than I do. There are parts of this game I adore. The relationship between protagonist Rose and her sister Ada, and the story in general, are excellent. The world building is superb, and the atmosphere in the opening few chapters had me ready to run screaming from the room at the slightest noise or movement. But as you progress deeper into the game, and particularly when you're faced with the game's chase sequences, the spell is broken. I still carry on to see the story to its conclusion. It is still a good game after all, but with a sense that this game could have been a lot better than it ended up being. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave us a comment, like, or subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got tons of awesome videos coming every week, including review impressions, indie game of the week, debate-driven top 5 lists, video essays, and our weekly podcast where we discuss games, gaming culture, and the games industry. We also stream 3 times a week at twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. But most importantly, have a fantastic day.